What always has really fascinated me is how many people are just actually not interested in evolving. You can try to open the doors and it's not something that I guess they're either ready for, may never be ready for, but it really fascinates me that, because it's such a big driver in myself. It's very hard to understand that it's not a driver in every human being. Welcome back, Delmont and Dr. Charles. And this is your chance to put me in the hot seat. You've not given me forewarning, which is about a 50-50 split, maybe slightly more towards people not giving me warning, wanting to see me squirm here and struggle to answer questions. But yes, I'm looking forward to what you're going to ask me. So fire away. I'm all yours.
Sounds good. So my first question would be, what mindset shift had the biggest impact on your life? When did it happen, and how do you sustain it? I'm interested in knowing those things.
I mean, I think actually I've always been pretty reflective of what goes on, even in high school, and it wasn't really to do with my sport that much at that time. But I remember I'd, talk to friends and stuff like that, and I'd kind of, again, feel like, I had empathy for what they were going through, and was always curious about how people reacted to things. But I think when I got to college and I was playing college tennis, I met a guy called Tom Seaborn, who was, one of the best karate guys, on the planet.
Yeah.
And he was the first person that I knew nothing about it, who used to meditate and talk about calmness and talk about, mindset, and he just loved tennis. So he'd come and watch matches, and I ended up playing number one for the team, and we connected quite well. And we just had these fairly deep conversations, and that sort of propelled me a little bit more onto the path of self-awareness. Mm-hmm. And then I read a number of books, and I was Buddhism, I really struggled with the Bible. But I would read like interpretations, and, just was fascinated by different religions in terms of how they dealt with, moral things and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But it probably wasn't until I stumbled upon Anthony Robbins, and he had a series of tapes where years ago, I'm talking about in the 80s, where he interviewed different people, mm-hmm. and they were very fascinating interviews. And it started to open a real world to me of because basically Anthony Robbins is well packaged NLP originally, and that really started to me, and of course in playing sport, trying to discover ways to be better mentally myself, though that sort of thinking, and it was right towards the end of my playing and into my early coaching days, had some kind of impact. And then Stephen Covey came out with a book. I can't remember exactly when it was, The 7 Habits. Mm-hmm. And then I was lucky enough working with a group in the UK that actually brought Anthony Robbins to the UK, and I saw him live 3 times, and 2 of them in very small arenas. One of them was huge for his big show, but he had these, I was privy to these smaller things. and I brought over Stephen Covey as well, and I was able to have some interaction with these guys. And Stephen Covey really impressed me. Again, he was much softer spoken. It wasn't as much razzmatazz and stuff. And I felt he had a genuine empathy for people, and
Yeah.
and you know, I do know on firsthand authority that he conducted his life very much how he spoke, which is admirable.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I can't say there was any one thing, but certainly all of these things drove me to a mindset that said, yeah, a belief of mine that is our whole job in life really is to get greater and greater self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the journey that as humans we should try to go on.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, so I think it's if the mindset for me is self-awareness and constant evolvement. I mean, I'd hate to think in 2 years' time I'll think exactly like I do now.
I know, right?
Yet also I'm very, very aware of how hard it is to break habits. Because it's very easy to help point out habits that other people need to break.
Mm-hmm.
And even if we know them in ourselves, they can be very hard to break because they're almost intertwined with our personality if we've been doing something for a long, long time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I hope that answers your question. I kind of went a little around the houses.
No, it does. And I appreciate you sharing. It kind of reminded me of a quote that I've heard before as well, as it relates to evolving. And I think it comes from Muhammad Ali, if I'm not mistaken. And it went something like, if I still see life and approach life in the way that I did when I was, 20 years ago, then I've wasted 20 years of my life, And so I think a lot of times we can find ourselves, or some people can deal with things in a way that causes a stagnation or arrested development, for lack of a better word, because there hasn't been the influence around them to help them evolve and grow mentally. That 20 years later, sometimes human beings can find themselves with the same perspectives and approach to life.
Yeah, I really love that quote. It's fantastic. What always has really fascinated me is how many people are just actually not interested in evolving.
Mm-hmm.
You can try to open the doors and they just, it's not something that I guess they're either ready for, may never be ready for, but it really fascinates me that because it's such a big driver in myself. It's very hard to understand that it's not a driver in every human being.
Yes.
But I've met a number of people who are just really not interested in evolving. And I find that fascinating. And it'd be lovely to find out how that psychology actually works, exactly, why. But yeah, I'm certainly in the camp of evolving.
Yeah, that's great. And I agree with you on that point as well. Because when I think back, after having had conversations with different athletes on different levels, I think fear plays a huge part in why there's that lack of evolution in a lot of athletes' lives. Because what that means is that now I have to face and answer questions that I've never been put in the space to have to answer. And so a lot of times the fear is hearing the truth from those questions. And the truth may be something completely different than what you believed or what you were taught.
I also believe that's a very good point you made there, that an athlete will have a success formula, the reason why they are where they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're very afraid to disturb whatever it is that has propelled them to where they are.
As
And
athletes.
so it's I've got a success formula. It might not be the best one, but I don't want to mess with it because I don't know what would come in its place and whether I'd be as good if I went down some of these avenues of hearing truths.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the fear of altering their performance by facing up to things I think you're 100% right there. I think that's a very, very real fear.
It is. And me having been an educator with a master's degree in special education, and I've also coached on a high level in like the AAU circuit, AAU, Adidas, and Nike circuits, I can say, and there is a percentage of athletes who haven't been received enough attention to help them evolve mentally, and what that looks like on the court is, as athletes, physically, you see grace, you see success, you see wins, and you see a lot of cheering and support for that particular athlete and what they've accomplished physically, right? But when you sit down and you try to engage in a conversation like we're having right now, you'll see a completely different person.
Yes.
And so it's because of the lack of development, and whether that was someone pouring into them emotionally or just educationally, there is oftentimes a deficiency because the journey to become a high-level athlete has been, you've been pushed forward in that lane so fast that no one cared enough to take time to.
It's almost like a conveyor belt once they get on,
Absolutely.
and you just keep propelling forward like this, and
not giving your mental enough attention to evolve mentally and educationally.
Absolutely. Next question.
All right. So my next question is, what are the most common, in your opinion, the most common mental blocks that keep athletes from reaching their full potential?
Yeah, great question. First and foremost, I'd say fear of success. And people think, wow, but fear of success is because it's unknown territory, and people are always afraid of the unknown. So, it's interesting because the higher and higher an athlete gets, sometimes the greater that fear can become, because like they've always hoped to get to a certain level, and then when it's starting to get close, and they've been pretty successful, suddenly the fear kicks in that I don't want to lose what I've got. Don't want to lose what I've got. And then they kind of shrink away from some of the decisions they have to make in order to go into the wilderness that they haven't been and see what they can do there. And then the other fear is, if I do that and I fail, then I've failed. Rather than, if I do that and fail, I've still done pretty damn well. And it's an interesting dynamic, because without stepping out to that next step, which they have done many times to get where they are, but the final steps often seem to be mentally the biggest steps for them. When in reality, I'd say if it's your next step, it's the same size as any of the steps before. So the first thing I would say is a fear of the unknown that success will bring. Second thing that stops athletes. This is a very, very good question. I would say it's management of their mind under pressure. So what happens is, under pressure, all the doubts come out. And then it's, what do you do about them? And it's how you change the way you feel about those doubts that's more important than what you actually say about them. And, I call it a transformation of a doubt or fear, a lot of people try to block them out, and you can't. You can't stop thoughts from coming into your head. But you need to transform those thoughts into something that's going to help you.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the times athletes, and this would probably lead into the third thing that stops them, is if they've got some tools and they don't get immediate success out of them, they ditch the tool and go, nah, that doesn't work.
Absolutely.
And so then they get on that, magic bullet train, which is, well, that didn't well, I'll try that. And if they get a win with that, it's like, oh, that works. Oh, no, now it stopped working. I got to find something else. And that's almost an immature understanding of high-level sport, which is it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to win and lose.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if they can accept that, that's a big, big part of the journey. And I'd say acceptance of the nature of sport, and really it's the nature of anything in life, that you can do everything very well or as well as you possibly can do it, and you can perform extremely well and still lose.
Absolutely.
And that's okay.
Correct.
And by trying to deny that, I think it takes away some of the curiosity. In my experience, the very best, if they're losing, they'll go, things aren't looking good, but I'll hang in. And if I just hang in for 5 minutes longer, maybe they'll get a little bit nervous, or, maybe they'll start to question things. So, the very best are so good at hanging around with a sort of curiosity to see, I'll just keep going and see what happens, rather than I can't believe this is happening and getting upset and actually getting into a downward spiral. They get almost more curious, and actually that's why they can get braver when they're in pressure situations, because it's like, okay, well, if I just do this, let's see how they respond. So they're very good at kind of, accepting that, hey, if I lose, I lose, but I'm still going to stick around.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I think that's about 3 things there.
Well, that was wonderful. I mean, based on those 3 things, there's one particular pillar that we offer that comes to mind, and it's called mental mastery. That's exactly what it is being able to navigate those tough spaces during the most crucial times, and doing it in a way with grace, with calmness, with boldness and clarity. And so I couldn't agree with you more. And I also think that...
And it takes an enormous amount of practice.
Absolutely.
Because in those high pressure moments, you don't get them,
immediately,
all the time as well. So whenever you get them, it's practice to learn how to get through them better and better and better. And you might have a lot of losing while you're learning how to navigate that place. But as long as you're really positive and have a belief that I can learn how to navigate this, and I accept even when I'm very, very good at it, I'm still going to lose some.
Absolutely. Not being afraid to fail. Because that failure...
It's not failure, is it? When you're competing against other people who want things as badly as you do.
Absolutely.
On the day, the margins aren't so big that, the very, very, very best in the world, certainly win more than they lose.
They lose. That's correct.
But there's not many who do that.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of teams at 50-50, or a lot of individuals at 50-50 who are doing very, very well. If you're a scholarship college athlete, or a pro athlete, you've succeeded, you've won already.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's just a case of how much are you going to win? But even with all of that winning comes the losses.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And learning from those is a part of the journey. Being able to take lessons from that to do what we mentioned earlier,
Yes.
evolve between the lines. And that is the journey.
Yeah, and I think a lot of athletes get to this, oh, I can't deal with that. And I would always say to them, okay, it's far healthier to say, I can't deal with this right now.
Absolutely, but I'll
But
get there.
I will. I will learn how. Because everything you need, you can probably learn.
That's true. That's true. And, as a basketball player, and I think of one individual in general that has had a huge impact on that mental approach that you're describing. And I think almost every in the basketball space, not just in the basketball space, in the athletic space, across all sports, have adopted this mentality. And it's the Mamba mentality. It's the
Yes.
exact thing that you're describing right now. I think the way Kobe defined that goes hand in hand with what you described.
Absolutely. Do you have any further questions for me?
I do. I have one last question, and
Okay, great.
I'm very curious about what you have on your bookshelf right now. What is it that you're reading, and it has to be something that you would reread at the drop of a dime.
I've actually started a book right now of a guy I've never heard of before, and I could actually run and get it. He's a producer in Hollywood, good friends with Kevin Hart. Oh,
Okay.
what's his name? And I can't think of the title. It's like something like,
You can go and get it. We'll take a minute. No problem. I'm not in a hurry.
yeah,
I'm
I think
curious.
I think it's downstairs.
Oh, okay. I got you. Yes.
Yeah. I'll put it in the show notes, but it's very humorous, but it's got some good messages behind it.
Yeah.
Another book that I'm currently reading is Tim Ferriss, Tools for Titans, which I quite like because it's short pieces of so many different successful people.
Gotcha.
So yeah, at the moment, those are the two that I'm diving into. And I do like to listen to some of the high performance podcasts because they interview, a lot of interesting people as well.
Yeah.
So sort of at the moment, those are the three things. Gosh, I just wish I could remember this. I mean, I was only reading it last night, and I was just gone. But it's some good messages done in real life stories, things that really happen, with him and particularly, he's had a long journey with Kevin Hart. And it's also somebody who has, one of the stories he tells, his mother, he was very, very happy because he got, I don't know, like 4 A's and 2 B's or something like that. And he's like a bit of an honor student or something like that. And he left it on the kitchen table for his mom, to look at and, give him all this praise that he was expecting. And she didn't say anything. And then he was loitering around the fridge and stuff like that. And eventually she looked at the piece of paper and said, oh, that's very good. You did very well there. Well done. And he said, then as she was walking out, she said, of course, if you'd tried a little harder, you probably would have gotten all A's. And then just walked out. And he said, suddenly in his mind was like, wow, I was looking for all this praise. And while I got some of it, could I have done better? And he said that set the scene for him. After that, he was a straight A student, and everything he does, he said, he always really, really tries to put his best in there. So it's and it's just reminded me, like, as a coach, throwaway comments are very, very powerful.
Yes.
But both ways can be very negative or very positive.
That's
And
true.
I think as a coach, I always was very aware that a throwaway comment can be very, very damaging or very, very inspiring.
Yes.
And to try and remember that when you like walking off from an athlete or, finishing a conversation, how you finish it, or, or when you're just walking past, and I'd use them a lot, like, walking past and seeing a point or something, going, boy, now that was mentally tough. Yeah. Wow. Not seen speed like that from you before. So trying to just throw in the positives there. But I do remember a coach once saying to a girl, look like you've put on a few pounds there. Had devastating effect on that girl.
Absolutely.
And a throwaway comment,
I fully agree. Agree. When I think back, actually one of the mantras that I live by, and especially during my coaching between the lines with athletes, is kids, they don't care what you know until they know you care. And so a part of making and developing that connection with them came with understanding them, so that I know how to use the right tone that you mentioned earlier, because that tone matters, because each of those kids have a different journey. And so I can't communicate to Delmont, the athlete, in the same way that I will with David. And so me being a player's coach and understanding their journey and what is most impactful with getting that player to perform at his or her best is what I try to keep in mind when communicating to those athletes. And so what I walk away, the message or the tone that I use before I walk away, goes hand in hand with the impact that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say is what's very interesting is in businesses, I think selling a vision starts with individual meetings. I think when businesses, get everybody together and then say, this is a vision and speak your mind, no good. The key stakeholders have to be met one-on-one, and you need to hear what their ambitions are and what they want, and then be able to sell them the vision and how what they're good at and what they bring and what they want fits into a vision. Now, if you depends on the size of a business, but if you have to do that with 12 people, you do it with 12 people. Once they bought in, they do it with their 12 people, and then it cascades all the way down. Absolutely. But the time that takes, whilst it seems slow, is fundamentally how you can alter a culture or an environment of a business. And it's the only way that you can really relatively quickly alter things.
Yep.
But it comes into that initial energy and work of getting to know each person individually. And, I've got a set of questions that for that first meeting that need to be asked. And it changes everything.
Absolutely.
And that way you start to build a team of leaders that are really have bought in. And sometimes you also find out and people realize that work in that organization is not for them. Because you've had a good conversation. It's like, actually, you know what? This is not what I want. And then you can help them go find what they want and really need. So, it's just very, very important. It's the same thing in business. You need to know the people in order to lead them.
Absolutely. And maximize that chemistry.
Yeah.
So the book that I'm currently reading, just to share it with
Yes.
you, is called Wealth Choice. It's by a gentleman who's actually a good friend of Dr. Rabion Charles. His name is Dr. Kimbrough, Dr. Dennis Kimbrough. He also wrote Think and Grow Rich. Think and Grow Rich was another book that was actually gifted to me while I was in college at Colorado.
That's Napoleon Hill.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. No, I read that years ago. Yeah, it's very
Yes.
good.
Yeah.
And I like reading the Stoics as well.
Yes.
Seneca and what's the Roman emperor called? I just lose my head here. It'll come back to me. Everybody knows who it is anyway. But
Well, Stoicism.
yeah, Stoicism.
Is one of that's the foundation of what we do. And I lead with that with all the athletes because, again, we spoke earlier about the importance of them being comfortable in expressing their truest emotions or truest feelings about anything in particular. And it's important for them to also know in competition, it's required that if you want to operate on a high level, it's required that you are able to find balance in those emotions and not having an extreme in either direction, not too high and not too low, and being able to do that at a high level.
Many a match has been lost through being too happy, too early, just before the finish line.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, both of you, for being here today. I wish you all the best in your journey. And fantastic. I really, really, really enjoyed it.
And I want to thank you, David, for the invite and allowing us the platform to hear our voices as it relates to the Athletes Compass and the impact that we plan to make in facing head-on the crisis that athletes worldwide really are faced with today. And
I'm sure you will.
Work that you do as well.
Thank you.
Coach.
Thanks for watching Locker Room Power with David Sammel. If you enjoyed the episode, hit subscribe and leave a comment on your favorite platform. See you in the next one.